Hello, I'm Ernie Baxter. I'm Suffolk born and bred. I've lived in the villages of Botesdale and Rickinghall all my life. I married a local girl, and her father was a horseman, so I'm sort of agricultural worker, or was an agricultural worker all the way through. And the film that we're going to have a look at is a film of F.W. Barker's farm. Must be 55 to 60 years ago when the film was took, and I thought you people would like to have a look at it. So if we switch the film on, I'll try and tell you what it's all about. Now this field is the village in the Wheatfield, which was also filmed in Botesdale and Rickinghall in about 1949, as far as we can make out. It's some is true and some isn't true. It's been made up, but that's one of those things. When they made films, they had to do what they wanted to do. And we will start off at the farmer's house in Rickinghall.
This is Falcon's Hall cottage, and that's the farmer on the right, and this is Mr. Knight's, and this is Brian, which is Ernie's cousin, but they said that was Mr. Knight's son, but it's not. And this is Falcon's Hall house. And that's going up to the top of the drive from Falcon's Hall. And we're now in the village of Rickinghall. It's a lot different to what it is now. We're now come past the police station. And that's Mr. Barker. He's now called Perry's Garage, but you'll find on the film they've called him a different name. But they're the two brothers of Perry's brothers. And that's Mrs. Marshall, and she's at the pump at Hamlin House. And that's Mr. Bullock Senior, and he's working at the bell. And this is the newsagent's shop, and she's now gone in there.
This is the man they call Billy.
But he's
who will, in the end, will get married, and you'll see that later on. But he's driving the caterpillar there, ploughing. Man of harrowing the field, ready for drilling. The old 1020 with the drill. Mr. Salter on the front, I think, and I think the man on the back with the Whistlecraft, of the Whistlecraft family.
Here come the Mr. Knight's on his bicycle. He's now put his hand up to this is at the school, and that's Pat Marshall and Doreen Bailey, Girl Cannon, and my cousin was just gone past as Margaret Wilson. And there'll be Pat now going into the newsagent shop. But now there's a photo of them in Marshall's shop down the bottom of Rickinghall inside. And she's now going to put a poster up about the WI. Now at the garage again. now at the fish shop, shores of Rickinghall fish shop. Okay,
In the middle of the village.
Fish. Village, in the middle of the village. And that's Mr. Dunkley, who owned the Bell. And that's Bullock, Mr. Bullock, senior. That's Perry.
All the old gentlemen used to like get out to have a pint. This is Mr. Knights and
And
his
Mrs. Knights.
wife.
And Brian.
Brian.
Yes.
At their home at Low Farm, Rickinghall. Kiln Farm, Rickinghall. We called it Low Farm. It was Kiln Farm, which was basically the same.
And that's back up the
It's back up at Falconsall
Oh.
Farm.
I still filmed. Bob Shevens cutting the, and that's my uncle there, Charlie Self, putting the things on the fire.
Mr. Morley again, who we saw in the other film, is now going to take a load of wheat away to be ground up.
And these are the turkeys on the farm.
Ready for Christmas.
Brian's now come to get the papers to take to the market. The mill, that's right, the mill. They're off to Beccles with the corn. Pat is waiting to be picked up. She's gone for a ride with him. Off to Beccles and Greens, the millers.
There's a windmill there we don't know nothing about at all. We can't price that one, but that's obviously only got 2 sails, so I presume that was a different type.
Now going into Beccles over the bridge. And
Dropping Pat off in one of the towns to do some shopping.
or at the Greens mill now.
Brian with his piece of paper. I always had to have a piece of paper with everything. Corn going through the dresser to be dressed and then turned into flour for your cakes and bread.
Being packed into the bags to sell in the shops. I used to work at a bakery in the village locally, and we used to have all our flour from there. and Pat is now in Dis, finishing her shopping. This is Reverend Cotton, and they're in Rickinghall Church. And this is the school children, and I'm in the school children singing. And that's Brian on the trumpet, and Muriel wholesome was it, playing the organ. Muriel Warren, no, Muriel Warren playing the organ. Is it right? This is the Methodist Chapel down Fen Lane, and on the right you'll see the Cock Inn.
That's the Rickinghall Law Church. And but the bell ringers were up at the Rickinghall
That's my uncle on the left,
upper church.
George himself on the left. So,
Mr. Cook, Mr. Francis.
and now for the
Now we're
wedding.
getting ready for this wedding.
That was Jimmy Bailey, his name is. And she was given away by Pat Marshall's father there in the film, but that's a make-up wedding. But they actually did get married, but not actually. We don't know who that person on the horse is.
Must be getting near springtime, they're throwing the fertiliser about. No sprayer coming in, throwing the old chemicals about them a days. Look at the drift on that.
Lovely sight to see the horses with the roller.
This is thing.
Yeah, Muriel Warren with the organ. And they're coming out the church. That's Pat again. That's Joan Cook. That's my cousin is the little boy in the middle, by the name of Tony Wilson. This is where they play on bells at the back of the bell.
It was a gentleman's game then, they walked about in the village when they were going to play bowls with their 2 woods in their little brown bags, and went in behind the door at the bell, and us ordinary chaps weren't allowed to do things like that. And now they're having their drink at the end of the game. Mr. Knights is there with Billy trying to sort something out. Well, look as though they were getting ready to get the binder on the go. Which meant that with all those shoes lying around there, they'd all got to be shocked up. Everybody put their hands into it and built the shocks. So they stood there for quite a while. he seems a bit leery on that tractor coming in there at that speed with horses about as well, but that's might be something to do with the filming.
The old G-boy.
Yeah.
Lovely horse.
Used to have a buggy on the front of the car, and then you see the tractor come in and take it off to the stack. A lot of them did anyhow. Quite a dangerous job that is. I wouldn't do it fall in there. Corn coming out there, so that's what it was all about, getting the corn out. Then we had a combine. Massey Harris, which come over in boxes, and some of the workers helped to put it together because they couldn't wait for the people to come from Canada to try and sort it out, so they got on with it themselves. Then going back to the old baling job again. To the old gavel of straw going up there, and the old wire bales again. The girls at the back, hitting the wooden blocks out.
That's Brian running across the fields. Having a picnic. There's Pat there and some farm workers.
The old boy was drinking his cold tea. What they used to take to work years ago, cold tea, black cold tea.
That's old Sadler's shop
That's the
there.
old saddler's shop in Botesdale.
This is
Yeah, they got the finishing touches. They're putting the thatch on. The foreman and Mr. Bloomfield and David Garnham now
only
coming out of it. There's Mr. Barker and Mr. Knights, I suppose they're discussing
tomorrow's work.
tomorrow's work, I reckon, yes. It was either bind it and go in the shed for another year. Here they're cutting kale by right hook, because the farmer used to do a lot of seeds for carters of London, and the seed was very valuable. Here we got one of the first muck spreaders around this area, and if you look, all the heaps had all been laid out by horse and tumble, and that was a vast improvement. And here we are baling with the old wire baler and the boards, the girls sitting on the sides, and there we have the old combine going along quite speedily in those days with those big old sacks. Now this old thing, we used to call it a scallywag, and that was very, very hard work to keep up with that thing, because it just kept coming up and up all the time. And as you can well see, the weather was always pretty decent, And now we're going back to hay turning with the old swarf turner. I think it's an international tractor on the front there. And the old scallywag again. Now we got the old binder with, I think that's a case on the front of that one. I'm not 100% sure, I think it's a case. Because they got all that lot to shock behind them, ain't they? And now we're going back to the old bale again with a caterpillar on. And I have a feeling that's a D2 on the front of that. But what a clumsy old thing that was years ago, but I suppose that was a vast improvement to what they had been doing in it. The D2 you used to have to start with a little donkey engine. If you look at the girl on the outside of that combine, you can just imagine what the health and safety would say nowadays. And those old sacks, big old sacks, 18 stone, 16 stone, whatever you was doing of. And the dirt, plenty of dirt about there, wasn't there? It's a Massey Harris, I think. I'm not thingy, but I think you'll find later on, you'll find that they're all Massey Harris. Yeah, there we are thrashing. That's my old grandfather on the stack, on the drum I mean. It took a lot of people to keep that lot going, didn't it? And I'm sure they never worked as hard as that. I think that's the film and a lot of that. And that was one of the first drainers around this area, cutting the soil out on Ward's Meadow, a field we used to call Ward's Meadow. Very slow job, but that was better than nothing. Now we're back to thrashing again. The old horse there waiting with his wagon. Yeah, here we go back to the bales. They were very hard work. They were heavy old things and tight. You couldn't get your hands round them at all. And the elevator was put on a trailer to make them a little bit higher. But that was still hard work to get them on the whole thing. And here we are drilling. And I'm fairly sure that's W4 on the front there. Jumping about, man riding on the back all day long, watching the old corn go down the counters. Yeah, we got 2 Suffolks, a Harron, but that was mighty hard work. Keep walking behind them all day, wasn't it? Mr. Tom Rush Diskin. He used a lot of discs in those days. That's Mr. Hottie Morley, who weighed about 20 stone, lifting a sugar beet really for him to be knocked, which is an improvement from a horse lifter, wasn't it? But he was a big chap, that man on that tractor. Here we go back the old detail ploughing again. All sorts of ploughs he pulled behind that. All sorts of furrows. That's cutting the balks down with Mr. Bloomfield. That was a skilled job with a pair of horses, that was. A very skilled job. Sugar beeting now, which was all chucked on by hand after they'd been topped. Back to the old thrashing thing again. Look at the dust flying about there. And wind, but it still had to be done. And what a stack done a day. At the wood. We're going back ploughing again with a different plough this time. Potato harvesting now, and they used to have to mark that out for the ladies to pick the potatoes up, and that had to be marked out properly because a pair of ladies didn't want a yard longer than anybody else, got more work to do. There's the governor's car, or was the governor's car. Now we're back to the old Massey Harris combine again, look. That there baler on the back, that was one of the first things around here to bail up, but it was a bit of a nuisance because you couldn't keep the chains on when you turned the corners, and chains would keep flying off, so that didn't turn out very well, but that was all the start of the baling of straw behind the combines, wasn't it? Now they got the sails off the combine, and they combine the wild white, and that was like gold dust. I wouldn't like to lose any of that because that was very, very pricey. And the filth are coming out the back now. And all this stuff used to go to Carter's Rhiners Park. Tremendous seed, as you'll see later on when we go through some of the other bits. All went there. There's an old Dodge truck out the back. Oh yeah, this is one of the first sugar beet harvesters. When you think of that, they've only improved on it as they've gone along, but the basic things are all there. I mean, that little old rake come out and clear the tops out, and that lay the beet in the rows. Marvellous, wasn't it? I told you Mr. Bart was a man of everything, and there's his flock of sheep. He had 2 flocks of sheep, 2 shepherds, because he owned a lot of land over different places. Big white car in the background there. Now we got some beef cattle. They got some tidy old horns on them, haven't they? They have. He used to get a lot of them from Hereford when they had the Hereford sales. Now we're going to the Ayrshires, the cows. That was on another farm he had it help with. There's always one want to be last, isn't there? Always one. Here he come, look. He had to be last. He bought a house at Rickinghall House and had those big old Highland cattle on the meadow in the front of the house. Got some old handlebars on them, haven't they? And this is one of the village fights which he allowed to have on the meadow in front of his house. And that's all the people from the village and the pubs dressed up, and a great time was had by the whole village because everybody turned out. That was the Cock pub on that one. They got the beer on there, and I really had a good time with that. All trimmed up, prams. All the ladies, I suppose that was a WI, perhaps, I don't know. And that was a man who had some little circus ponies used to live in the Bell at Botesdale. And the big house in the background. Now we move on to one of his other houses he bought later on, after he left the Rickinghall house. It was still a fairly big house, wasn't it? Pampas grass in the front looked very nice, doesn't it? Which are very popular nowadays, but wasn't those days. And his big car in the background there again, look. Flower beds. He had a gardener or two look after that for him, you see. Lovely brick wall in the background there. Tremendous. All the work what went into building one of those. Now we go out into the fields where they used to grow flowers for the seed again. All the lovely colours there was across the fields. But that meant a tremendous amount of work when they were cut down and had the seed all rubbed out. There's onion seed there, I think you'll find. And they used to have a lot of ladies work for them to do these things. And my father told me when they had a village hawkie, well, had a farm hawkie, sorry, that there was between 70 and 80 people sat down because all the ladies was all invited to the hawkie beans they worked for him. Something is making the old sheep run. Yeah, you got 2 Suffolk horses with their foals, which is a lovely sight, isn't it? Beautiful sight. That's marvellous to see him running around like that. Yeah, there's a lorry at the old dryer, unloading the bags into the dryer. 2 Mr. Hills, 2 brothers used to drive the lorries then and cart the corn off the field. Now when the fields had their flowers sorted out, they were just ploughed back in and that go round the full circle. That man there, he got his trousers tied up just below his knees to keep the mice out of his legs, I reckon. This was at Falcon's Hall, Rickinghall, this here dryer. And when they used to cart the bales by hand, you used to have 2 people lifting them up. But you wanted the people the same size, otherwise if you had a tall and a short bloke, the short one was getting all the weight, wasn't he? This is what they call seed hulling, which was another dirty old job, and a continuous old job all day long too. It could be any seed they wanted. Could be kale seed or peas and not peas, they wouldn't have peas, but they'd be the smaller seeds, you know.
I'm Ernie's wife, and I was born in the village the same year as what Ern was, and I was born just down the lane from here, where I live now, and that was a new council house, but there was no water laid on, no electric. My dad used to have to go down the lane and over a stile up the footpath to the village pump, which is was in Warren's Lane, and he used to go and get the water, and he done that for months and months, and they never laid the water on at all. And eventually they laid the water on in the lane, one pump at the bottom of the lane and one at the top of the lane. And we had the electric put on, I can't remember when the electric went on, but that eventually went on. We had an old copper in the kitchen, an old cooking range, and that is a new council house built in 1938 they were, and it was called Coronation Row. And there's different things that, and then we had a toilet out in the backyard which had to be emptied, but Dad done that every week. Done some good vegetables, had some lovely vegetables in the garden. I used to work at the Cosy Cat when I was about 12 years old, part-time, and to earn a little money, pocket money. Well, we always used to have the AA man with his motorbike and a sidecar come in round about 5 o'clock every day. He always had a ham sandwich and a pot of tea, but he always liked a lot of mustard on it. Well, the Cosy Cat used to do catering for weddings. Well, he hadn't arrived, the AA man hadn't arrived when they'd got to go to see to the wedding at the church room in Baxter. So they said, "Will you see to the man?" I said, "Oh yes, yeah." Well, she said, "I'll put the mustard powder in the little egg cup. Don't mix it, because you know it'd be a waste if you don't turn up." I said, "No, I won't mix it till he comes." So he arrived, and of course she told me not to put too much water in it. Of course, you know, being a bit young, I put a little bit too much water in. I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I looked in the cupboard and I came across some curry powder to thicken it up. And so I put it on his ham sandwich, and he said, "Cool, in half hot, that's lovely. What sort of mustard?" And I said, "It's only Coleman's mustard." So he had an extra cup of tea, because that was hot. So he went off, and I had to lock up, and I had to go and wash up at the... She said, "Well, did he come in?" I said, "Oh yes," and I brought the money at the till for you to know, so I wouldn't leave it. So I had to get on. I said, "Fine, very well." But I'd already washed up the mustard. Nothing more was said. I thought, oh, I got out of this. So when he come in the next time, he said to her, "That mustard was excellent. That must have been different mustard." So she said, "No, I put the mustard in. Mary only had to put the water in." Of course, she said to me, "What did you do?" I said, I made it too runny, and I put some curry powder in it." Oh! And I never lived that down. That is a true story. My dad was a horseman. He worked for another farmer by the name of Wilson. and he used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to feed the horses and get them ready to start work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And you'll see on the photo of him with the siler, and where he used to cut the corn and different things. And there's another photo of him with the tumbles. Or years ago, that we used to go to the Sunday school, and the farmer used to have a party for the Sunday school children, and my dad used to take them all in the tumble. And nowadays you wouldn't be allowed the children in the tumbles, but it used to be a treat to go out to tea, and if it rained we had the tilts over all over us, and that's gone back several years, but I can remember us playing as if that was yesterday.
This was how harvest was done years ago, after they done away with the scythe, with the binder. The sheaves are coming out, but they'd all got to be shocked up and left in the field for a while. Any shape or any size, ladies or gents, everybody got involved in that. They used to like what they cut during the day to be shocked before the end of the day. He's rubbing out the corn just to have a look, see what it's like. But that'll be a long while before that's harvested. You used to have to put those sheaves under the wagon the right way, otherwise the man up the top there wasn't very pleased about it, I'll tell you. He'd throw them down sometimes if he was a youngster. He always had the master of you. He'd soon drop them onto you. And you didn't get hit many times. You knew what to do. Yeah, it was a dirty old job. Anything to do with thrashing was dirty. The worst job was a chaff boy. And if you was in the chaff place, you were absolutely filthy. And the youngster always used to get that job. Some of those sacks that had holes in, and they used to blow out the holes all over you everywhere. Dirty old job. Wasn't worth having. But that was animal feed.
Do you want to tell us what he's doing?
Well, his thatch and that, it looked as though he's got quite a busy job. I didn't know much about thatch, but I know they always used to use the brooches made from nattry and string, and used to cut them up in their slack time because they used to thatch houses and things. There's a Massey Harris. That wasn't a bagger, that was a tanker one. And that was, well, that's like everything else, that was a vast improvement. And they needed a little bit of grease in the mornings. That was your first job while the corn dried out, was to go around and grease things up and tighten your belts and keep things in running order. Because you didn't want to stop once the sun come out. You ain't got a lot of protection from the dust and the rubbish then, had them. You ain't got no cabs, you had to set up there. Get all the filth into you. But then that was a vast improvement from the binder. And That's what's happened through life, isn't it? It's gone from the scythe, binder, combines. And nowadays they're massive things, aren't they? And a little old tanker coming along here now, when I finished work and I was on that job, I had a trailer that would take 12 tonne a time. And that was a vast difference to something like they're putting it into now. Oh, the grey Fergie, a little grey Fergie on the front. I mean, that was a revolution in tractors. A revolution that was. He had a 3-point linkage on, which a lot of them never had, and the hook for the trailer. You could just drop one trailer and pick another trailer up, or drop a muck spread and pick another muck spreader up. I was seen 3 muck spread trailers and 2 Fergies and 1 filling it up, and they used to just come along and pick them up and off they go. Ladies used to be on the back, putting the wires through. Took a lot of people on the baler then, didn't it? And I was surprised in how much land they got over with one of these little old tractors, or little old caterpillars. I mean, I was surprised in how deep they wanted and how many furrows they get behind some of them. I mean, some were 3, 4, and they got to 5, didn't they? They turned over a lot of ground. This was another tidy old job, filling the drill up when it all done with bushels, bushel skips. Old army overcoat again. Used to all wear a hat, didn't they? A lot of them used to smoke as they went along. That was part and parcel of life then, wasn't it? The old horses, hiring them in. Man used to have to do a lot of walking in the course of a day. But they didn't seem to aisle a lot, did they? Another one of rolling. The horses knew he was on camera, didn't it? Yeah, he did. Yeah. They were thrashing with a... Oh, I can't think of the name of that one. Paraffin, I think they were paraffin. I can't think the name of that old machine, but that was before they got a belt on a tractor, I reckon. You're putting it wasn't a paraffin one, because he was splitting a wooden coal, wasn't he?
Mm. We see one of them working at Dorset, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
What was it called?
There's the old chaff boiler on the side there. There's another type of grower tiller, I think. Yeah, it's another type. Run things. Certainly turned the ground up, didn't it? You can see that old land is sort of light and fluffy behind them old things, can't you?
Hmm.
Huge machines, aren't they? Huge machines.